Have you ever driven deep into southern Utah? Past the crowds, the tour buses, the national parks, and stumbled on a tiny town that looks like it just rose out of the red dirt? A place where the main street feels quieter than the desert itself, and every boarded-up shop whispers stories from 100 years ago. Beyond the noise of Zion and Arches, there's another Utah. A quieter, older, forgotten one, made of remote towns that seem frozen in time. And that's where we're headed. Not to the big cities or top destinations, but to 15 small, remote Utah towns, each with its own unique story, its local legacy, and a kind of charm you won't find anywhere else. Let's start with a coal town turned art haven. Tucked along the Price River, surrounded by narrow canyons and old railroad tracks, sits the town of Helper. Its name? It comes from the Helper engines that once pushed trains up the steep grade to Soldier Summit. Founded around 1881, Helper was built on the back of coal mining and the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad. Immigrants from Italy, Greece, Japan, and China helped shape this once bustling town of miners, mechanics, and machine whistles. Today, things look different. Helper, with its population of just over 2,000, has transformed. Old brick buildings, once filled with hardware and saloons, now house art galleries, studios, and local theaters. There's the Western Mining and Railroad Museum, colorful folk murals on downtown walls, and an annual art festival that breathes fresh life into its streets. Helper isn't just a lucky old town. It's living proof that even in the quietest places, culture can spark revival. South of Helper, where red cliffs hug wide valleys, you'll find Torrey. It's more of a village than a town, but it's the main gateway to Capitol Reef National Park. Founded in the late 1800s and named after J.L. Torrey, a Rough Rider and war hero, this place has changed very little since the days of covered wagons. Home to just a few hundred residents, Torrey feels like something out of a storybook. Summers here are filled with farmers markets, front porch folk music, and outdoor plays set against towering canyon walls. The Torrey Log Schoolhouse still stands, a wooden witness to Utah's pioneer past. But Torrey's real magic begins after sunset. As one of the world's official dark sky communities, the town protects its night skies from artificial light. Look up at night and you'll see stars so close, you'd swear you could reach up and pluck them from the sky. In Torrey, the universe feels just a little closer to home. If you keep driving up the winding road into the mountains, you'll eventually find one of the most remote places in all of Utah. A town where, for years, the only way in or out was on the back of a mule. This is Boulder, not the one in Colorado, but the legendary hidden village in southern Utah. It was one of the last places in the United States to receive mail by donkey. Tucked between Escalante and Capitol Reef, Boulder sits along the dramatic Burr Trail, a narrow canyon route carved with sharp turns and steep cliffs that feel like they belong in another century. The town began with Mormon ranchers and pioneers in the late 1800s, living cut off from the outside world until the 1930s, when the Civilian Conservation Corps finally carved a road through the wilderness. Today, Boulder is slowly emerging as a one-of-a-kind travel destination. The Anasazi State Park Museum here holds ancient relics from the Fremont and Pueblo peoples, proof that this land was home to civilizations long before America even existed. In Boulder, the past feels present, and the silence speaks louder than the road ever could. Way down in southeastern Utah sits a tiny town called Hanksville. With just around 200 residents, it might not seem like much until you see the landscape. Surrounding Hanksville are strange rock formations, bone-dry plateaus, and skies so wide they swallow you whole. It feels less like Earth and more like Mars. And that's exactly why NASA chose it as the site for the Mars Desert Research Station, a training ground for astronauts preparing to survive on the Red Planet. But this town isn't just about space simulations. It's also home to Hollow Mountain, a quirky gas station carved directly into solid rock. And it's a perfect launch point for Goblin Valley and Capitol Reef. Remote? Definitely, but that's its charm. Endless space, endless silence, and a wild imagination waiting to be set free. From the Martian silence of Hanksville, we move to a place that feels almost bustling by comparison. Moab might be more well-known, but that doesn't take away from its magic, especially when you drift into its quieter corners. Once a uranium mining town, Moab has transformed into the adventure capital of Utah. Here, you can scale red cliffs, bike the slick rock trails, or simply sit in awe under the surreal arches of Arches and Canyonlands National Parks. But Moab is more than just a gateway. It pulses with its own energy. Farmers markets, street musicians, tiny galleries, and a tight-knit creative community give the town a vibe that's both welcoming and wild. Even if it draws crowds, Moab never loses its frontier heart. Out on the western edge of Utah, there's a strange little town split in two, Wendover, half in Utah, half in Nevada. On one side, endless white salt desert. On the other, flashing lights from neon casinos. It feels like a border town out of a movie, but Wendover carries a story far deeper than most people realize. Back in World War II, this is where the Enola Gay, the B-29 bomber that dropped the first atomic bomb, trained for its mission. Today, Wendover is famous for something completely different: Bonneville Salt Flats. Flat, white, and otherworldly, this is the place where the fastest cars on Earth break speed records. Each year, thrill seekers from around the globe gather here, not just for the races, but to witness a landscape that looks like the surface of the moon. Wendover is full of contradictions. Military secrets and motorsport legends, slot machines and silent deserts. It's strange, it's stunning, and once you've been there, you won't forget it. Brian Head sits high, really high. At nearly 10,000 feet above sea level, this is the highest town in all of Utah. Only a few hundred people live here year-round. But when the seasons change, Brian Head comes alive, twice. In winter, it becomes a snowy wonderland. Skiers fill the slopes, wood cabins glow beneath thick snow, and everything feels like a mountain postcard brought to life. But in summer, the snow melts, revealing green meadows, hiking trails, zip lines, and small-town festivals that celebrate nature. It's not a place for everyone, but for those who love silence, snow, and crisp alpine air. Bryan Head is a hidden mountain haven. Ever heard of Escalante? At first glance, it feels like a forgotten page in Utah's vast desert book. This tiny town lies along scenic byway 12, one of America's most stunning drives, and serves as a quiet gateway into the wild heart of the Grand Staircase Escalante region. There are no big highways here, no chains, just winding roads, layered cliffs, and wind that sings through the canyons. Back in the late 1800s, Escalante was a pioneer stop. Today, it's a base camp for adventurers. They come with tents, hiking boots, and cameras, ready to explore slot canyons, climb slick rock trails, or chase waterfalls like Lower Calf Creek Falls, hidden deep in the desert. Escalante isn't loud or flashy. It's raw, rugged, and absolutely real. From stone and time, we now journey into something even quieter. Lucin, Utah. This isn't your typical town. In fact, it barely counts as a town anymore. Hidden in the remote northwest corner of Utah, Lucin once served steam locomotives, offering fresh water and track repairs on long journeys west. But as rail technology evolved, Lucin was left behind, slowly swallowed by the encroaching salt flats. Today, all that's left are a few trees, a couple of rotting wooden buildings, and something truly unexpected, the sun tunnels. These giant concrete cylinders, designed by artist Nancy Holt, perfectly frame the rising and setting sun during solstices. Here, art meets silence, in a place far from civilization. If you've ever watched Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, then you've already seen Grafton, Utah's most photogenic ghost town. Founded in 1859 by Mormon settlers, Grafton once thrived as a fertile farming community along the Virgin River. But floods, frontier tensions, and deep isolation drove its residents away. Now, what remains feels frozen in time, a wooden schoolhouse, weathered homes, and a quiet cemetery where the past seems to whisper. No electricity, no engines, just the crunch of your footsteps and the wind. Grafton wasn't built for tourism, but today it invites reflection on courage and the hard choices of walking away. Next up, we drift toward Woodside, arguably one of the quietest towns in Utah. It once served as a railway stop, an oil and helium drilling outpost, and even had a cold water geyser that tourists came to see. But now, all that's left are skeletal buildings, rusted beams, and stories that have mostly evaporated into the desert wind. There are no permanent residents, no services, yet Woodside lives on, through photographs, ghost hunters, and curious wanderers scanning forgotten corners of the map. Then there's Tabiona, tucked deep in Uinta Basin, a town that feels like it was placed in a snow globe and never shaken. With a population under 150,000, most residents here live off farming, fishing, and family traditions passed down for generations. In autumn, the mountains surrounding the town burst with color. Dirt roads become ancient hunting trails. And in winter, heavy snow isolates the community, shrinking the world down to just the people who call it home. Not many people know about Tabiona, and honestly, the locals don't seem to mind. This isn't a stop for fast travelers. It's for those who are patient, who seek quiet, and maybe a simpler way to live. Next up is Kanab, a small town that's never been shy about showing off. Nicknamed Little Hollywood, this town has served as the backdrop for over 100 Western films and TV shows since the 1920s. Surrounded by red sand, rolling desert hills, and towering rock formations, Kanab feels like a movie set that never got packed up. But there's more than just nostalgia here. Today, Kanab is known for its deep compassion. Home to the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary, the largest no-kill animal shelter in the United States. Each year, thousands of volunteers come to care for dogs, cats, horses, and even abandoned parrots. It's a town where the Wild West meets kindness, and that's a rare combination. Tucked between mountains and lakes is Panguitch, a town rooted in farming, survival, and something warm. The name Panguitch comes from the Paiute language, meaning big fish, a nod to the trout-filled waters that once surrounded this area. Settled by Mormon pioneers, Panguitch is best known for a legendary story. During a brutal winter, early settlers crafted quilts and walked on them across deep snow to reach supplies. That act of resilience is now celebrated every year with the Quilt Walk Festival. The town itself is cozy. Brick storefronts, antique shops, and community murals line the main street. Just a short drive from Bryce Canyon, but Panguitch stands proudly on its own, a reminder that strength can come from stitching together what you have. And finally, we end our journey in Midway, possibly the most visually stunning town in all of Utah. Surrounded by the Wasatch Mountains, Midway looks like a page torn from the Swiss Alps. With chalet-style homes, green pastures, and winding streets, it's often called the Switzerland of Utah. Locals embrace their European roots through the vibrant Swiss Days Festival, a celebration of tradition, costume, and joyful community pride. But Midway hides its most magical treasure underground, the Homestead Crater, a natural hot spring inside a limestone dome. Here, you can swim in warm mineral water, even as snow falls softly outside. It's a place where comfort, beauty, and natural wonder come together in a way few towns can claim. In the end, sometimes the most unforgettable places aren't the ones filled with crowds, but the ones filled with stories. These remote towns in Utah may be small, but each holds a different kind of magic. Whether it's carved from stone, stitched in a quilt, or glowing beneath the stars. If you're searching for a different side of America, one that's quiet, honest, and full of wonder, you might just find your answer on the long, empty roads of Utah.